As a reminder, the essay that we are doing this week is to discuss how the theme is developed using symbols, characterization, and tone and mood. So when we're going through the story and reading it today, that is what you want to focus on. Okay. All right, characteristics of Prince Prospero. Okay. These I already wrote down from the previous class, so rather than erasing it and writing them again, we're just going to talk about them. Prince Prospero. All right, so looking at the character of Prince Prospero. First period said that he was selfish and that when he locked the 1,000 people into his castle, that he actually caused them to die, that he signed their death warrants. And the proof that they gave me was a line that said ingress and egress. Okay. Now, this is the question that I want you to think of. Now let me pause it first. All right, so my first question, looking at our choices that he's selfish and that he signed their death warrant, do you agree or disagree with that about the characteristics of Prince Prospero? Do you really think he's that selfish and that he really murdered 1,000 people? All right, so we do have another negative characteristic of Prince Prospero, and you're not wrong. He is definitely very arrogant because he's Prince Prospero. Here's the problem, is this story is about the bubonic plague in the 1300s. It killed like a third of Europe's population. Okay? And so you have Prince Prospero who decided that he was going to take 1,000 healthy people and lock them in the castle. He did not know that the plague was transferred by rats. And castles, of course, would have had rats in it. And so when he locked them in, first period was right when they said that he essentially signed their death warrant. But did he really do it because he was arrogant or selfish? Or did he, as ruler, look at the situation and go, my entire country is dying. I'm going to take the healthy people and I'm going to lock them in and keep them healthy. And that line in the story where he says the outside world can take care of itself was really him saying that those who are sick, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to at least protect the ones that I can. So thinking about that complication, now tell me, do you think there's more to Prince Prospero than what we see? Okay, so devil's advocate, you said that it shows that he was actually caring. And the line that you gave is that he took 1,000 people in, but he only took in his friends. So the people that would have been protected were the rich and the nobility. Okay. So do you still think that he was caring? Are we back to selfish? Is he something in between? What do you think? All right, I'm recording again. Back to symbolism. Since I've got it on this slide, you can make sure that you have it. 5 is balance, insight to understanding. And then 6 is sensory perception, and then the devil's number. And so this is at the beginning of the story. They've been having this big party, and then it says the 5th or 6th month, things start to change. Poe intentionally chose 5th or 6th month to do this. They start to understand that death is there. Okay, that is the insight to understanding. Okay. Sensory perception, you know you have sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, all of those. The 6th sense is intuition. Okay, you know it, but you don't know why that you know it. Okay, that's what Poe means when he says sensory perception. So they know that death is stalking them, but they don't know how they know that. Okay, and of course, death being the devil. Okay, remember that this is Poe, so it would be negative connotation in terms of going to Hades. All right, our story. Let's find.
Miss Smith, whenever you turn off these stories,
We're going to start reading from here. Who would like to read first? that line, it was a voluptuous masquerade. What image comes to mind? Because Poe is big on imagery, and that's one of the skills that, or standards that you really need to focus on. And everyone always says, oh, imagery isn't everything. It is. But what image comes to mind when you see that phrase, voluptuous scene? He could have used big. He doesn't. He uses voluptuous. Okay? And he doesn't say party. He says masquerade. So what image comes to mind? Recording.
But first, let me tell of the rooms in which the Lord came. These were 7.
Wrong stuff. Is it possible that besides the 7 deadly sins, that this 7 could also represent something else? It's tied to the theme. Because, and this is the same with Devil and Tom Walker. Tom wanted to cheat death. Well, the 7 rooms, each one of those rooms is a step towards gaining knowledge that you cannot cheat death. And so one of the themes tied to here is you can't cheat death. Okay, good. All right, each room that they have actually represents the people in it. So when we look at the blue room and the symbolism of the blue, that tells you the characteristics of the people in that room. When we look at the purple room, you know who's in that room because of the characteristics. So you have to pay attention to the colors. You also have to look at the order that death goes through. Why does he start with the blue room? Why not start with the white room? White is purity. You would think that he would start with the pure people, but he doesn't. He starts with the blue. And as we're looking through that, ask yourself, why start with a room that symbolizes, I'm looking down here at the bottom, where I go through blue, where it says that it is wisdom, trust, and confidence. So why does he start with the room that symbolizes trust and confidence?
Right.
Now I'm looking at the symbols of that sentence to explain what's going on. Okay, so we're looking at, that you're not laughing at, looking at the symbols, you've got right and left. It used to be that if you were left-handed, they would call you cursed. Why? I actually don't know why.
Not right.
Well, right-handed is strength. And so when you look in literature, the people who betray the main character are often left-handed, or the people who are the bad guy are left-handed, whereas the right people, the right-handed man, those are your strength or your protectors. And so when you're walking down this corridor, you have weak people and you have strong people. Okay. And you also have these windows symbolizing freedom. So you have these people that go through and go, there's our freedom. So when people start dying, they're like, there's freedom. The problem is that it's colored. And when you think of windows, if it's colored, it's an inaccurate view of freedom. And so what's really freedom? If they leave, the plague is outside too. And so they're torn. What do we do? And that ties into all the symbols, right, left, middle, tall, narrow, and window. So all of the understanding of that one comes from those symbols right there. All right, so that part right there that he just read, it's actually telling you that everything in the room was the same color. The part where it says the stained glass was prevailing hue. So if it's the blue room, the stained glass was also blue. Okay, so it wasn't like it color coordinated, it was the same color. Okay, and that's where the symbolism comes in. This one is actually really important. Eastern is one of those symbols that is biblical. Okay, and it's important. And Poe was actually very religious in some aspect. And it's important because it's where death starts. Why did death start at the eastern part of the castle, when eastern symbolizes power, light, and wisdom? Why did he not start in the black room, which is the western and death? He starts at the eastern, the blue. And it's tied into biblically in God and starting with all of those things. So as death travels from room to room, ask yourself, why did he go from blue to purple? and think about what is the symbolism of that and what is Poe trying to say. My picture of the castle, and for those who are listening to this on YouTube, you are also not allowed to laugh at my drawing that I drew of the castle. So let's look at this one. He goes from blue to purple, and purple being nobility, okay? Remembering that the rooms represented the people in it. So room 2 would have been full of those that are more noble, okay? But the third one, okay, 3 means birth, life, and death, okay? Beginning, middle, and end. So this is where people are going to start noticing things, okay? Green symbolizes hope for eternal life. Okay. So this is the beginning of the end. People are starting to realize, hey, we cannot cheat death. And they're going to, that understanding is slow in coming, but it's starting. So when we look at this sentence, death starts in the blue room. And then he goes to the purple room. And then he goes to the room that starts with those hoping for eternal life. And then he goes to the room that's disruption. So it was probably more the drunkards, the comedians. And then he goes to the orange room, which would be the happy showy. Now the thing with symbols is there's always positive and negative. The positive is happy and showy, but the negative is that orange is betrayal. So when we're thinking about the story, more than likely it's actually talking about betrayal here. And then he goes to the 5th, which means insight to understanding. So this is where people are going to start really understanding things. It's the pure room. And there's the irony that you have in this story, is this should have been the room where people were actually doing good things, like because they were the pure ones. It was just as bad, and so Poe is pulling an irony here. And then from there he goes to the violet, which is majesty, okay? And then he ends up in the death room, okay? And then 7, of course, symbolizing getting results. Well, he gets results when he kills everybody. All right. Next sentence for me, please. So the question that I have for you is, it says, and it's the only one. Why do you think Poe made the death room have different color of the windows? Because that's what it says. The color of the windows failed to correspond. So why is it this is the only room where the windows did not correspond to the color of the room? So not only did it not match, it was scarlet, a blood color. Right. Remember what we talked about with the bubonic plague? Did you die easy? No. So when you look at this, it has just described all of the chambers. No lamp or candle. There was no hope. So it doesn't matter what room they were in, whether it symbolized hope or not. The hope that they had was an illusion. No one really had any hope that they would survive this. Okay, that's why it says there was no candle and no light.